reinforces our brand, and it is really all about leverage. Everything that we do is focused on how do we make something that is achievable, that lowers our costs, if we do it in a repeatable way. And we can prove that to the satisfaction of ourselves first, but also to customers. And for that, you need a governance structure. It can't just be a bunch of good people trying to do the right sort of things. So that's all I had. I'll be very happy to take questions. I know you're all going to run home and say, I want a governance structure. But if you're a company of any size, you need to have some proof in the pudding. It can't just be your marketing brochures. And I'll tell you, that scorecard truth doesn't lie. When we actually go through that, we find out very quickly who's getting right with the Lord and who isn't, and how fast. No questions. That's scaring everybody. You need more coffee. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, it is. In fact, even with the discussion I talked, where I won't say that I took this person to the woodshed. I really had tried to get this group to do the right thing. But one of the things I did, even when I went to the oversight committee, is there were actually a couple different lines of business within that big group, and one of them had a security lead who was awesome. And I always made a point of going back and saying, you know, Joe Schmo is doing a great stuff, very cooperative, reinforcing. So I really try to do it in a positive way. When somebody's doing something great, whether it's sending an email note to them and copying their management, I really try to do that. I don't only say so-and-so is being mean to us and not doing the right things. I try to specifically call out people who are doing the right things, because it's, you know, their management doesn't always know that. So do I personally hand out, you know, bottles? Actually, I've done that. I occasionally will give somebody a bottle of scotch or something, whatever their vice is. But I also try to acknowledge people who are doing the right sorts of things, because they need that. Yes. Funny you mention that. We do get pulled into. We don't necessarily get. I don't necessarily directly get pulled into M&A, but you know, in other words, when they're thinking about an acquisition. But there are things that we have done to try to help seed that. So, for example, there's a group that does an awful lot of due diligence. One of the things that we did is to offer them some. In fact, I just had a discussion about this, that it needs to be sort of revved. The types of questions they should ask to make that determination. So we seeded. Here's the type of things you should look at as part of an acquisition. It's not that security has to be the only thing you would look at, but if you're going to look at it, here are the things you should check out. Occasionally, there's been a request, and I stayed out of it because I don't have these skills, to use my ethical hacking team to look at a product. And let me tell you, anybody who's met our chief hacking officer, he's very good at what he does and very pithy. So he will usually use words of one syllable in expressing how secure or insecure a product is. But we have done that as part of due diligence. We don't always do it, but they are called in from time to time. And again, I think in at least one case, you know, it was that security assessment was a particularly critical fulcrum to make kind of a go or no go decision. I don't know the particulars, because we're very, you know, I'm not in the M&A loop at that stage of it. Usually just after we've already bought somebody. But we do use security sanity checks. Yes? Well, you're right. I didn't want to be too glib about that. So what I meant was, you don't want to be so good at fixing bugs that you forget that you're supposed to be avoiding them in the first place. That would have been a better way to say that. So we do. Yes, I should say something about fixing bugs, because in a way, you want to get good at it to the point where customers trust you. And this is kind of an educational process. So when we work with research, you know, not all. In fact, most of the bugs that we find are the vast majority found by us, something like 87% at least across the whole company. I mean, I'm not looking at a particular, we find ourselves. Now, having said that, when a researcher reports something, you know, we have processes in place to make sure that we communicate back on a regular basis and, you know, try to be professional about it. Because, again, if you're rude to the research community, that will get you sometimes in trouble pretty quickly. But one of the things we do is to try to, and I don't mean educate in a pejorative way, but we explain to them. So one of the debates you have in industry is, well, I reported this 3 days ago, you should fix that